Hare Krishna. Welcome to our channel, Bhagavad-gita. Here it is, because we have Bhagavad-gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my name is Bhagavad-gita. And the more I read this Bhagavad-gita, the more I appreciate it. So I'm actually very happy that we have this opportunity to read it here together. So we're at the very end of the 13th chapter. Stay with us.
Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalang.
So yes, I will read text 34 in this chapter, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, which is basically everything. So this is a very, it's like practical philosophy. It's a way to understand the situation we're in this world with all its components in a very condensed form. It's just one chapter out of the Bhagavad-gita. Yatha prakashayat yeka kritsnang lokam imam ravihi kshetrang kshetri tatha kritsnang prakashayati bharata. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Yes, we have a body. It is matter. If you cut off a part, it will start to disintegrate. It will become useless very quickly. When the soul leaves the body whole body is dead. And you cannot stop it. I mean, you can put the body in a freezer. It will disintegrate much, much slower. But you cannot reverse the process. But as long as the soul is there, of course, some damage can be done that is not repairable, but mostly I cut myself in the thumb a week ago, and it was bleeding. I put a band-aid on it. It was still bleeding. I got the help of a friend, and we put a couple of band-aids on it, and the next day it wasn't bleeding anymore. And now it's still a little raw. If I bang it into the wall, which I apparently do quite a lot, it hurts like anything. There's no blood. And a couple of days from now, I'm going to forget that it was ever there, because the body repairs itself. It's magic, almost. But only when the soul is there. When the soul leaves, no more magic. Purport. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad-gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body. And as soon as the soul passes from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter. It is a symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme, because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the supersoul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. Yeah, so we want to understand this, and we want to go against the conditioning of the present culture, because the tendency of modern culture is to, if we don't understand it, we reject it. And we study things that we understand, and then we get deeper knowledge of it or more useful knowledge of it, and we will keep studying all these fields of science. The consciousness, you can't really study it. The soul, you can't even find it. There's one place in the second chapter where Krishna describes the soul. At one point, Krishna says it's so small, and it can also not be killed. And then Prabhupada says, yeah, you can't kill it because you can't find it because it's so small. Well, even if you can find the soul, it is eternal, it's of spiritual nature, so you can't kill it. But you can't find the soul, you can't just start cutting up the body and says, haha, Bhagavad-gita says the soul is in the heart. You won't be able to find it. But without reading Bhagavad-gita, we can come to that point where we suddenly realize that here is something that it's there every day and we take it for granted, but we don't understand it and nobody's talking about it. I just had this realization a couple of years ago. What are dreams? How can we go to sleep and dream and be in a totally different place and wake up and come back to this body? I mean, how is it possible? If consciousness comes from the body, because that is one idea. One idea is that, bam, everything is here by chance, and somehow or another the elements combine and we have planets and we have little tiny life forces, and then they kind of become more complex and develop, and here we are. And at some point these molecules developed consciousness because they were complex enough. You can't do that. You don't find that. You won't be able to combine molecules and turn them into consciousness. It's simply not possible. Because the soul is what gives consciousness, and the soul is one person, and I am a person, and right now I have this body, and therefore this body, every part of it is conscious. You know, even if I'm looking at in this direction, if somebody comes from behind, which would be very weird because there is a wall behind me, so of course no one's going to come from behind. But if I am not aware of somebody by sound or by sight, and then somebody comes from behind me and kicks me, I will notice it because every part of the body is conscious, and this awareness is there because the soul is in the body, just like the sun is in the universe. This is also interesting. All the light comes from the sun, and then we're thinking we have so many lamps and we have fire and everything, but basically all the energy we can find also comes from the sun, but it's like indirect. It has been caught in a form and then brought back out again. So that's the sun. You have one sun. The Vedic description of the universe is you have one sun. Stars are something different. I'm not going to discuss it because it's one of those things that I don't understand deeply. But why not? I haven't been to the sun. I haven't been to any stars. I can believe what Krsna says in the Bhagavad-gita. I can believe what somebody with an education and a telescope is saying. And even if you have very good instruments for stretching out your eyesight, it will still be part of our senses. It will still be possible to make mistakes. So yes, I'm actively choosing to believe Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita. Either way, even if that wouldn't be so, still in our part of the universe, the sun gives us the light. All the light comes from the sun. And if the sun isn't there, we cannot take a great big spotlight and go out and search for the sun, because the sun is hiding just behind us. And when it comes out, all the light is there. And even if we don't see the sun, even if it's a cloudy day, the light of the sun will still give us light. Will still be there even if we can't exactly point to where the sun is. And in the same way, the soul is here and the soul gives consciousness. And I am that soul that gives consciousness to the body. The body is not conscious because as soon as it's cut off from the soul, it's just matter. And it will disintegrate. So that's my consciousness. Then of course super soul is there. Krishna is following us wherever we go. Because without his presence, we cannot really live in this world. It's not going to work. So he's there as super soul, which means he's not exactly interacting with us in a personal way. He's the witness and the permitter. And he makes everything possible. Remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness, it all comes from him. Connections, how we come in contact with our karma, it's super soul that leads us there from the heart. So if we are aware of this body and whatever is in connection to it, like my eyes, they can go to the next wall unless it's dark. My ears, they can hear so far. Anything else I'm not aware of. And then somebody else can be sitting just right next to me. But if somebody comes over and kicks that person, I will have no awareness of it because my consciousness is limited to my own body. What say we take the next verse? This is the very last verse in the chapter. It's a very good chapter, and if you just kind of found us at this verse, below I have a playlist for all the chapters. So this is a very good chapter to study if you want to understand existence in this world and what it means for us. And ultimately, all the chapters of the Bhagavad-gita are very good. So you are welcome to utilize all the playlists that we have down here. This is text 35. Kshetra kshetragyayor evam antarangyana chakshusha bhuta prakriti mokshang cha ye viduryanti te param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. Yes. It is good to have a goal, because if you don't have a goal, then it's very difficult to find motivation to do anything. But it's also good to know, to have a goal that's worth it, that's worth the trouble. And all the other goals that don't take into account to understand who I am, they will most likely not be satisfactory. We have a story that comes up sometimes. It's a very simple story, but it's nice if you want to make a little philosophical drama. So man, he got a parrot, and he goes back to the shop and says, his parrot, he's not talking, he's supposed to talk, why isn't he talking? And then the man says, oh, I don't know, have you tried talking to him? Have you tried giving him a mirror? He's going to say, speak to himself in the mirror. Have you tried giving him a football? And he will say, the parrot is Pele. This is a very old story. The man tried all these things, he came back. Eventually, he brought the parrot back and he said, this parrot is dead. He's expired. Maybe not in exactly those words. And then the man said, so what did you feed him? I said, feed him? I'm supposed to feed him? So it's like that with the soul. We can develop so many goals and ideas and go for them and try for them. But unless we know who we are, and we know what the soul actually needs, it will not be complete. We're not going to die as such, because the soul is eternal, but we will not be satisfied. I was going to say happy, but happiness kind of comes and goes. But there's another level of satisfaction when you know the meaning of life and you know your path to it, and that is deeper. And that you cannot have unless you understand who you are. Purport. The purport of the 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and supersoul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. Yes, so that is not the material world. Here we live, we die, we live, we die. And we can try so many different aspects of existence in these different life forms and times and places. But we will die, and we will come back, and we will live. And ultimately, it's extremely frustrating. So, but there is a spiritual world, the supreme destination. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God, and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his student to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in Bhagavad-gita we find Krsna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul. And there is also the supersoul. The soul and the supersoul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. Yeah, so Prabhupada says a faithful person should do this and they should do that. The thing is, in this material world, we can do whatever we want, up to a point. I mean, I can't fly, but if I have that desire, maybe in my next life I can fly. Everything is available to us, but we will also have to take the karma, and we will also have to be born here again. So when Prabhupada says we should do this, it means if we want to reach this destination, if we want to have this specific result, then this is what we should do. We can also decide that this is not what we want to do, but really we should give it a try. This is the Bhagavad-gita, this is the knowledge of how we get out of this material entanglement and reach the eternal abode. And even, it's not also a thing that says, yeah, we have to follow the book and then when we die we will be in a good place. But actually, in this life, we can realize that existence. We don't have to die. The body will die eventually, of course, but we don't have to wait for the body to die to have some realizations. But we do recommend that we take up the process. We read the Bhagavad-gita, we understand this concept, and we take up the process of Krishna consciousness. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. So, yes, this chapter has been very valuable. I've been very happy to read it in this. I'm reading the Bhagavad-gita on and off and all over, and I recognize it, but this has been so systematic and it has been so nice, and I hope I have been able to share it a little bit. But these little episodes, they are very short because I know what it's like to sit in front of a monitor and look at somebody talking. It can be interesting. I'm aiming to make it interesting because Bhagavad-gita is very interesting, but there are limits. You can't sit in front of the screen forever. But these topics that the Bhagavad-gita bring up, they are meant for contemplation and for realization. So please take it with you. Carry it in your heart. Go back to the verses in this chapter. Read it in your own Bhagavad-gita. And apply it in your life. And you can see that something will change. And it will change for the better. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.